It's interesting, you know, over the years covering these types of protests, they often start off very peacefully, and most of them end up very peacefully. But the ones that don't, the ones that kind of start to get a little bit out of control and start to pose a threat to the public, are the ones that, well, you know, just to describe this one for you, to describe this demonstration during the 4 o'clock hour, it was a varying group, all ages, all races, all different people protesting the same, for the same movement. As the evening goes on and the sun sets and it begins to get darker, the crowd skews younger, and you have a more aggressive human instinct almost that comes out of some of the folks who are here to cause trouble. And that's not everybody. Some of them are very peaceful. Most of them are here to just get their point across. But there are vandals, there are others in there who are intent on causing disruption and destroying public property.
All right, Chris, we have a dramatic scene to show you right now. This is in Minneapolis, where a number of cars has been set on fire in a desperate attempt, and a feeble one at that, of a man with a water hose trying to prevent the fire from spreading to the building. This is just a short distance away from where there are some protesters, but that's a live picture of more fires being set in Minneapolis. So the violence continues and the destruction continues in that city, a very tense city where basically is the ground zero of this entire tragedy that has basically grabbed this entire nation. And the unrest there is unprecedented levels for what that city has seen in the past. There's a better shot. You see multiple cars on fire. Again, live pictures from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So when you see stuff like that and then you turn your attention back to downtown Los Angeles, yes, we are lucky so far that this crowd, they have been walking through the streets, but so far not a whole lot of destruction, some inconveniences, of course, some big ones at that, especially when the 110 freeway has been shut down. But so far, nothing like fires being set and no tear gas, Colleen, like we saw in San Jose either, and not a whole lot of arrests either. We saw one person being detained so far, but that's it. Yeah, and we saw, you know, earlier we saw that there was protests going on in Houston, and we saw the mounted police coming out, and you saw just the intimidating factor that these horses have on protesters when they started sort of looking like they were getting a little somewhat of a tense stance against law enforcement. The horses kind of came and were a barricade again to buffer between police and the protesters. And we've been seeing this all across the country. We saw it earlier in Atlanta as well. So we know a lot of people are coming out, voicing their reaction to that really very disturbing video that did come out of Minneapolis. It came out on Monday. A different camera now, Colleen, on that same scene that we're seeing. On the right-hand side from Minneapolis, yeah, cars on fire. We saw this massive, you know, we know that the police precinct was burnt last night. We know the night before, David, we were watching this massive fire. What was it, at the auto body store? Yes. So auto shop, AutoZone. So we've been seeing, the Target was and a number of other stores were looted. And that was some dynamic, dramatic video that spread out on social media as well. These crowds in Minneapolis overtaking these stores and looting them, and of course the AutoZone they set on fire, and then the next night they set the precinct on fire. And then of course now tonight they have the curfews, but of course people are breaking those curfews. And again, we were hearing, you can see on the right side, it's still Minneapolis. It's looting going on right now. Is that a live picture? Live pictures of more looting happening in Minneapolis. It looks like they're going into a store. I'm not sure if I see people taking out stuff. I did. Oh, okay. So Minneapolis is in such a really fraught situation there with, but again, looking on the left-hand side, you see the bicyclists and everybody in the middle of the intersection. But there is something to be said. It's they're wanting their message heard, but in a peaceful way, which you have to commend them, because when you look at other areas that are finding a lot of violence and tension, I feel like your message almost gets lost, and you need to. And Mayor Garcetti said it tonight during his briefing. He just said, you know, Los Angeles
come out and, get your voices heard. And there are so many stories of George Floyd, but they do need to come to an end. So everyone is trying to come out and get their message out there about the injustice that happened to Mr. Floyd on Monday evening.
But do so peacefully.
Yeah.
Chris Christie's been watching this protest underway. Chris, have you been able to hear what might be happening on the 110 freeway?
Situation on the 110 freeway has really been alleviated. Traffic is flowing on both directions. CHP doing their best to now guard those remaining on-ramps. Although, I should mention, besides the transition roads that get you onto the freeway, there are these other access points where you can climb down an embankment and enter the freeway, and that's something that they were eyeing earlier. They have basically been expressing an intent to get on a freeway all day long. The organizers of this group have been talking about it. They've been aiming for the freeways. They tried the 101 freeway. They eventually made their way onto the 110 freeway. Things became very tense on the freeway. They accomplished their goal of blocking traffic for several minutes, but things really have improved on the 110 freeway. The crowd has dwindled further, so we're talking about, again, in the neighborhood of about 100 protesters here, maybe a little more, and they're now turning onto 8th Street. So now they've turned off of Hope, down 8th, towards Grand Street, and they're slowing down a little bit. This is a group that's been out here in the sun for the better part of 4 hours now, and you would imagine some of them are getting a little bit tired, and as the night goes on, I expect that we will continue to see the crowd dwindle. Hopefully, as they make their way through downtown, LAPD will continue to monitor their movements, and hopefully everything will remain peaceful.
Yes, let's hope. So we are continuing to watch this situation. You just never know. It was so peaceful earlier today where the crowd was fairly sparse, but then it does seem to ebb and flow. And then when it really rises up, boy, they move quickly and they seem to come out of nowhere. So an organized movement by this group of protesters going through downtown Los Angeles, but I will say, as Chris pointed out, it does look like that they have slowed down just a bit. In the meantime, we continue to watch a number of situations. Gabe, is that Minneapolis?
Atlanta.
Oh, that's Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind popping that up? Okay, there we go. That is Atlanta. So to give you some background of what we've seen in Atlanta, the crowd has been very aggressive, on the move, for some reason, which we don't really know yet, or the explanation of. There's smoke there too, so we don't know if that's from tear gas or a fire that has been lit in Atlanta. But just to give you some idea of what has happened there in the past, earlier this afternoon, CNN became a gathering point for a large crowd where they not only defaced the CNN logo in the front of the building, they also started shattering some windows there at CNN. Eventually, police took a very aggressive move. They brought in Bearcats and they moved the crowd away. The crowd eventually left the front of CNN and they moved elsewhere in the city, but nevertheless, the anger and the tension continues to exist there in Atlanta, and that's those live pictures that we showed you. Back to downtown Los Angeles as this crowd continues to move, and as you can see, huge police presence all over Los Angeles, downtown LA. This appears to be some sort of a staging area, Chris.
It's so interesting, David and Colleen. It is a staging area. A number of officers, again, making their way into the downtown area. One of the things that you can't help but notice up here, and you can only really see it from the helicopter, as far as the eye could see, in a number of different directions along various freeways, you could see blue and red twinkling lights traveling by the dozens, all coming into this area. So we have LAPD officers coming from West LA, coming from the San Fernando Valley, Hollywood Division, South LA, all converging here in downtown LA. So you have just a tremendous amount of manpower in the LAPD, within the Los Angeles Police Department, that are making their way to this area to manage the situation and maintain order in downtown. Hopefully, it won't be needed. Hopefully, with a few skirmish lines, they can guide the crowd in certain directions. They won't be forced to use any kind of force, hopefully, if everything remains peaceful. But LAPD is ready. They're ready for anything, and that's why I think we're lucky enough to say that things have remained peaceful, because LAPD has done such a tremendous job of maintaining order here despite some isolated incidents.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable to see that it has maintained a level of peace, because there is such a volume of people out there right now, Chris. And of course, as many times we see, once sort of the sun goes down and night falls, we sometimes takes on a whole different dynamic with people's attitudes, and the tensions sort of build. But, you know, as of right now, everyone really has been taking a peaceful stance in a sense, police and protesters all down there. Of course, we do know so many police officers were just as equally disturbed as the people out there who are protesting the death of George Floyd on Monday. So again, a collective group outside there trying to stay peaceful this evening, and we can only hope it stays peaceful. Joining me now will be Mark Brown pretty soon as we stay on our ABC7.com. But Chris, wouldn't you agree? It has been staying. It's maintained a level of peacefulness out there.
There's an officer surrounded.
Chris, you're on now.
I'm sorry, Colleen. Yeah, we're moving positions here. We're at Grand Avenue and 7th Street trying to get around this building where there's a report of an officer surrounded by protesters. Obviously, you can see another crowd forming here, and folks taking pictures of something that is unfolding on the other side of this building. It looks like there's another skirmish line. You can see right there in front of that city bus a number of officers preventing them from going any further on, I believe that's 7th Street. So that a large group now turning onto Grand Avenue to get away from police. Once they see those officers in riot gear, you notice they begin to shift directions. And then the cops see them, and you see they jump right into action just like that. You saw a whole group of LAPD uniform officers with riot gear. They've got their shields. They've got their helmets on, and now they may be preparing to box in this crowd. They may have given the order, somebody may have given the order to not allow this group to travel any further on 7th Street. Excuse me, they were on Grand. They turned onto 7th Street because there was a skirmish line on the north side, and now you see that skirmish line moving, and here's a confrontation with one of the protesters getting right in the face of law enforcement, being pushed up against somebody's vehicle, and you can see things getting a little bit more tense, much more tense here in the last couple seconds. Somebody throwing things, and this is how it starts.
Wow, this is exactly how it starts right now, Chris. This is just, you see the tensions, they're just rising out there.
Tensions rising,
you can see somebody throwing cans and bottles. This is something they were prepared for. They saw some of these protesters arming themselves with bottles full of liquid, and you saw somebody throw something right there. You see less than lethal weapons being fired. That may have been tear gas. You can clearly see canisters now being fired in the direction of protesters. So things are taking a turn here in downtown LA.
Yeah, we're watching it here in the crowd. The skirmish line reforming here as we're seeing. And yeah, what can happen sometimes is they'll arm themselves with objects. You're seeing it here.
Yeah,
they're throwing things at the police.
Yeah.
The officers have the right to defend themselves against items being thrown at them. They're trained, you know, to deal with unrest, with situations like this. People yelling and screaming at them, getting in their face. If someone yells and screams at you and gets in your face, you do not have the right to retaliate in any way against them. But once the threat becomes physical, and that is when you will see officers retaliate or at least take action to stop whatever perceived or actual physical threat is going on, and that's what it appears to have happened here. But the crowd moving back in response to those less than lethal rounds and the what I guess is pepper spray or pepper gas or pepper balls that are being launched at them. And now, but they're still kind of congregating right around the police car there. I don't know if that car is occupied. Can you tell?
I can't tell. I cannot tell, but I could see that skirmish line is gradually moving. So the decision has been made to kind of, I guess you would say, close in on the group. They are basically surrounded by law enforcement. I can't see if they can go any further north on 7th, but they certainly can't go any further south on 7th Street. You can see that skirmish line there. There's another skirmish line at the intersection of Grand as they begin to scatter once again. If you tilt up just a little bit, Rob, I want to see, have they formed another one north of the intersection? Can they continue to go north? There's some patrol cars, but they don't have the north side of the intersection shut down, just the east and west side on Grand Street, or Grand Avenue, I should say. So you can see things have kind of come to a pause here as LAPD begins to close in on this group towards 7th and Grand. Lots of folks screaming. Again, looks like somebody smashed a skateboard into that back window or something. I think it was that skateboard. But the back window of that patrol car has now been completely smashed. So again, a very animated crowd, very agitated, and beginning to get ever more aggressive.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting as we've watched these protests taking place across the country. Seems like after dark, they take a turn. We've been watching them during the day, and the things would be fairly calm. And there are exceptions, of course, but then as things got darker, under cover of darkness, if you will, or whatever, darkness hits and things change a little bit. That skirmish line advancing again, and what they're trying to do here is basically, I think, herd the people, for lack of a better word, move them in a direction and get them to gradually disperse. You kind of lose people dropping off as along with with distance and with time. Keep advancing, keep moving, and
what are you hearing?
You get down to a core group of a few dozen people sometimes, and then they'll just disperse after that. But a lot of things can happen between now and then, as we're seeing. Look at that.
Wow, we're seeing fireworks now happening. Were those that looks like a firework.
Yeah, that was clearly a firework. I did not see exactly where that came from. You could see one officer down getting back up, but something was shot in that direction. I can tell you that I'm hearing word, and I cannot visually confirm this yet, but some of these protesters have actually made their way back over to the 110 freeway where they're trying to get on the freeway. So now we have two separate locations. We'll try and get some more information and a better view of that situation on the 110 freeway in a minute, but clearly you could see things getting much more animated at 7th and Grand, where tear gas was fired, and now we see fireworks going off. I'm not sure where that came from, but presumably that would have come from the group of protesters.
Yeah, Chris, and we were saying earlier, you and I both saw that same image where it looked like someone holding their skateboard had just smashed the back windshield of that police cruiser that we see right there with its lights flashing. But again, this crowd is getting a little bit more tense, and it doesn't help matters that most people have been on lockdown for the last couple months, and this is the first night that County is reopening their restaurants, so people are started getting out, and I think a lot of people have a lot of pent-up energy, and they're just coming out there. And boy, this is just getting the tensions are escalating. People are becoming more and more violent out here. Let's hope brings some peacefulness to it again.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about the pandemic, Colleen, and how we're still in the midst of that. We're on the downward slope of that, but we're still in it. And it is a fact that so many people have been locked up in their homes for a long time, or they haven't been able to work, or if they are working, they're working a lot more hours under conditions that they might find themselves in danger, some of these essential workers. So it has been a tense time anyway. It's been a difficult time anyway. And you overlay that with what has happened in this really difficult month. It's not just, George Floyd was kind of kind of lit the fuse, but the fuse has been there, and it's been simmering over for years really, but especially over this month with two other very highly publicized incidents just this month, and then last month was Ahmaud Arbery as well. So it's just been a very, very difficult time and very stressful emotionally for a lot of people who are concerned about issues of justice, issues of fairness, issues of policing, and then to issues of unemployment, right, and issues of fear of the other threat is coronavirus, and trying to keep themselves safe. So again, tonight LA is opening gradually. Almost everything is reopened, and people are out. And Chris, you're seeing it. I mean, you've been here. We've been watching the streets empty for weeks.
There is something heartbreaking about it. downtown LA has been a ghost town. Let's face it. The last couple months, it's been desolate down here. People have been working from home, and we have